Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison DeJager from List Self Storage and StoreTrack. And for those of you who aren't familiar, List is a property listing platform. StoreTrack is a data resource to make informed decisions when evaluating markets. Welcome to our video chat. So today we're discussing what it takes to develop in this market. We're joined by John Bilton of Janus International, Matt Mawer of BETCO, and Mitch Feldman of Feldman Companies. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Good
morning.
Just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your company, your experience in the industry? John, can we start with you?
Sure. John Bilton. I'm with Janus International, and I focus on the technology side of Janus International. So we have a product category with Janus called Noki Smart Entry. And that's this piece that I really spend time and energy with on a daily basis with a lot of clients across the country, and large and small organizations. We're seeing a tremendous number of trends in the technology space and self-storage. And we're seeing a lot of new development, as well as conversions and existing properties that are changing the nature of the properties by really upgrading and updating their sites in a significant way. My background has been a technology background. For the last 17, 18 years, I've been in storage, but I've always been on the tech side. So property management software, the technology related to websites, technology related to onboarding tenants, and kind of the technology curve as we've seen it come and hit self-storage. And I think it's still growing and changing in self-storage quite a lot.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about some of those technology implementations. So we'll definitely get into that. Matt, what about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Yes, Matt Mawer with BETCO Incorporated, and I'm a business development manager for the company. I've been with the company about 13 years. I was involved in high-level sales for about 12 years, covering a large territory up and down the eastern seaboard, but currently took on a business development management position about a year and a half ago, and just developing relationships with general contractors and REITs and institutional and private equity firms, and of course focusing so much right now on multi-story construction, but still we see it every day, single story, climate control, non-climate, and we are a 39-year-old self-storage building manufacturer and installer. So in a nutshell, that's what we do, and that's kind of who I am.
Great. And then Mitch, what about you?
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks
I'm actually an attorney by background. I started developing storage facilities. Now it's over 25 years ago. We built in Puerto Rico, Florida, in the Northeast, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We're expanding out into Maryland, Virginia, Indiana. So we're kind of spread out now, looking at opportunities all over the place. And we've seen, we were storage before storage was cool. And, so we've kind of been in it for a while, seen the industry change and grow. And we've been trying to grow with it. So again, thank you for having us. And it's great to be here with my colleagues.
Absolutely. So I actually want to keep the focus on you for a second, Mitch. Just kind of to get started, what's the relative timeline for development from breaking ground to C of O? And then what about the permitting process? And I understand that varies from one municipality to another, but if you can give us what you've seen in your experience.
So every year it seems to be getting longer and longer. So I don't know, right? I mean, you guys are all nodding your head. But yes, I mean, I would have told you, a couple of years ago, 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, 14 months. So, who knows anymore. But, it feels like we're getting more and more delays from material suppliers. We're getting more and more delays from even just electric components, transformers, and even working with the municipalities has slowed down a lot. It really, it's really hard to keep it on track. Things are getting delayed. The permitting process, again, it was a lot slower during COVID times just because of the online meetings and that aspect of it. It feels like that's getting back on track. So in-person meetings are now back. In Florida, we've been having them forever, but so we weren't affected the same way. But it's slowed us down, and I think really it takes a lot more effort to keep things pushing forward, and a lot more planning and ordering early, getting on top of it early. So it's taking a longer time.
Matt, do you have anything that you can add to that?
Well, Mitch is spot on. I mean, we've had to kind of deal with delays it's almost been 3 years now. Hard to believe it, but it really hasn't. It's more about planning, but for the customer, I mean, we're always listening to the customer. It's about speed. How fast can you get the quote? How fast can we get the drawings? When's the delivery going to happen? How long is the construction going to take? And like Mitch said, maybe 3 years ago, we might have said on 100,000 square foot multi, maybe 12 months. But now it's more in the 14 to 18 months, and depending on permitting and
18? Did someone just say 18?
well, I hate to say 18.
I'll take it.
In some
No,
cases,
no.
yeah,
Stop.
yeah. But it's and a lot of it depends, not really on the building manufacturer. So much of it is municipality, getting zoned and going through all that due diligence and then the permitting phase and so forth. I mean, that just takes a lot of time, but things like that have gotten better, and really the development is still at a rapid pace. I mean, it's through all this, we've seen tremendous growth, new customers, existing customers. So many positives, but there's challenges within that as well. And we've been able to, I think as an industry, we've been able to take care of our customers, and hopefully we can continue to do that. But timeframes are always a big thing. It's speed. And that's a good thing. And on our part, we need to make sure we can offer that speed and follow up.
I was going to say, I've seen some interesting things out there recently. This is I'll call it a true story because it is an existing facility that did phase 1 about 4 years ago. And they decided to do phase 2 about 18 months ago. They went into their jurisdiction, existing property, just phasing second phase. And, Mitch may have seen this. And they came back to me and said, well, so we're working with our jurisdiction. It's going to take them 2 years to permit us for phase 2.
Yeah. And
they just went, we can't wait. And I said, okay, well, your only alternative in not waiting is to do, a portable, unit, because you don't have to get the same permitting for that. And so they built phase 2 with all portables. They used our technology on it as well, but they squozed that timeline because they had the need immediately. Now that's a circumstance that doesn't always happen, but just anecdotally, I've seen that happen in the marketplace where even an existing site looking to go phase 2, and I've got one in Reno, I'm going to be there tomorrow, and they're doing a phase 2 on an existing property that's all self-storage. And they're like, the jurisdictions have made it tougher, harder, longer to get the permitting necessary to move forward. Now, some of that also has been on us. I can tell you right now on the technology side, over the last 24 months, with some of the supply chain constraints that we've had coming out of Asia, coming out of other countries, we've absolutely had, it caused us to be slower in response to the customer need. It's gotten better the last 4 or 5 months, but it's still not, I think, meeting all of the expectations that sometimes the marketplace has.
That makes sense. Can we stay with you, John? What about site preparation? What do we need to know?
Well, multiple things. If you can get your permitting going, then the site prep work is really important, and choosing that right relationship with that contractor or subcontractor or the general, whoever you may be using in that process, and Mitch can speak to this as they do a lot of development, is really important, because often that site prep work, that lays the foundation. You've got, your undergrounds, and you've got your slab. And then for the most part, what, Matt is doing and others are doing, we're everything from the pad up, and whatever that up looks like, single story, multi-story, climate controlled, non-climate controlled. And so the site prep is really important. And also the site selection is super important with the right feasibility study, understanding the marketplace, understanding the egress and ingress I think is very important on a property, how it's accessed, and then how it's viewed. I was at a property yesterday. They, in that jurisdiction, they were not allowed to show any roll-up door from any viewpoint on the main road that this facility sits on. And it's kind of like, self-storage doors are what, that's how people know it's self-storage. And they had to put fenestration in there to block the view to any self-storage door along a 40,000 a day car, unit pass by every day for vehicles. And so, and they weren't allowed to put any signage up that indicates self-storage. So these jurisdictions are doing funny things. And that site prep, he had to make it look like self-storage without showing any doors.
Or
And
saying
that-
self-storage.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
That goes back to the vehicles per day. Who cares at that point, right? It doesn't even matter what they're seeing.
Exactly. So he did it cleverly, and it's going to work, and I think the property will be successful. But that was a big challenge in getting the site set up correctly so that people could hopefully understand that there's self-storage behind that that look and feel as you drive down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you add to that a little bit also about site preparation?
Was that John again?
Oh, no, sorry. Going back to, switching to Mitch to see if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, site, look, obviously, it's real estate is location, location, location. Those are the 3 rules of real estate, that's you learn day one. So yeah, site selection is critical. You want to be in the right market. You want to have the ingress, egress, and for us, we like visibility. We build big and we want to be seen. We always say go big or go home, and so we want to be seen. But we've been building them sort of hidden like that. We have one that we had an approval on, that there was a senior housing property next door to us, and we actually copied the senior housing look, and ours looks like a residential property, and you wouldn't know it was storage other than the sign on it that indicates it. So we're building them for the markets and for the jurisdictions that we're in. You guys know me, but we do difficult properties. Everything we do, or most everything we do, is a zoning change or a variance or some type of situation where we want to be on that site, and we target the site. So, we don't settle for a site that's an industrial location in the back of an industrial park. We're front and center, and we fight for those sites, and we work with the municipalities to get them. So yeah, it takes us longer, and our designs are unique and they look nice, and we spend more money on them, but we feel that we end up delivering a better product, and it looks nice. And most of our facilities now don't have any doors on the outside because that's what the jurisdiction requires. And they're all climate controlled and first class, 5th, 6th generation storage facilities, whatever generation we're up to right now. So we're building top of the line stuff.
Matt, is there anything you can add about site prep?
Well, they've really covered it for the most part, but there's a few things. Obviously, location is critical. Maybe part of it too, and finding the right site, and site preparation is early onset, just due diligence, feasibility. Not always necessary, but in most cases it is. a lot of times for, for lending purposes and so forth. But doing your due diligence and obviously, like John and Mitch both said, I mean, we're seeing a lot of sites that are, there's veneers and IMPs, insulated metal panels. There's everything to hide the storage, to hide the metal, to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the local area. So that's very common, very common.
Well, I would just add one other thing about site prep is, we always do geotech reports and we're checking the soils and we're seeing, how much it can hold, if we have to do any, geopiers or piles, which we're trying to avoid because they're expensive. But a lot of times you just don't catch it, and you'll find unsuitable soils in one spot that's too soft, and you just eat the change order. I mean, it happens more often than people think, where there's part of the soil that you really have to remove and refill. Sometimes a lot of times when you're first getting into a project also, you don't necessarily pick up the change in elevation when you're first looking at a site. So you'll start drafting a design for your 120,000 square foot, flat footprint. And then once you start getting into it, all of a sudden you're realizing that, you got to start moving away dirt or building a retention wall. So, that's something that you really need to pay attention to early. Some of it you can catch, some of it you can't, but that's part of development.
Okay. We talked a little bit about this, the timeline, and if speed is the priority, but I feel like speed does cost money. Matt, can you talk a little bit about how to stretch the dollar?
Well, stretching the dollar today, I mean, a lot of that may come into technology. As far as, the type of technology you use, and I'm sure John will hit on that in regard to that question. But stretching your dollar, I mean, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the due diligence, the feasibility, the right unit mix, identifying those things early, like Mitch mentioned, retaining walls, all types of things in regard to the site preparation in terms of stretching your dollar, protecting your dollar, just doing the due diligence early on in every phase of the project.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think there's some other elements to it. COVID really pushed a couple of, I think, themes in self-storage. One was contactless rentals, whatever that kind of looks like and feels like. And then the second was really this whole thing about remote management, remotely managing properties. Now, Mitch builds some big properties, and sometimes these very large properties can have a hybrid model where there's some remote management technology used. There's also, on-site staff. And so we're seeing a mix out there, but the push towards technology to help save money in the operations and to make the site more efficient and to give the customer or potential customer or tenant a better experience is really important. I mentioned I was at a site yesterday. It's about 80,000 square feet, single story drive up with about 12,000 square feet of climate control. New site just opened a few days ago, and they have a remotely managed site. And the person can onboard in 2 minutes. So the tenant can come with their mobile device, or they can come to the site and onboard in 2 minutes. That owner is saying, I'm going to save the dollars associated with a lot of labor and, a manager and a part-time and, relief manager and all those things. And I'm going to do this, electronically. And that presents some challenges in and of itself. But he was also looking at the long game, saying, over time, this saves me X dollars. It increases my net operating income, makes my property more valuable. And he doesn't, this is a personal choice that he's made. He doesn't really dig employees. He likes technology and he wants to do it that way. And so, this contactless, remote managed kind of environment is really something that I'm seeing in the marketplace on a pretty significant way. And that is, taking dollars, being smart about it, stretching dollars. There is a CapEx up front, that's for sure. And then surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of properties retrofit to technology as well. And that changes kind of the operating profile and the operating dollars associated with, the ongoing cost of, running a self-storage facility. So I think there's a lot of different ways to do that today. The other piece is planning. Mitch can talk to this, but the planning piece, and Matt alluded to it in a strong way, is if you plan really well, you stretch your dollars better. This gentleman bought a lot of his steel 7, 8, 9 months before he actually needed it, and he stored it on property. And he said, because I saw the steel increases coming, he thinks he saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by planning better than maybe other people did. And he felt really good about that. So, I think planning is a big element of creating an environment where you're using the dollars and maximizing the CapEx, particularly at the beginning of these projects, because they are, time is money, and that capital expense is real, and the banks want their construction loan paid back, and they want, permanent financing, and all of that just accelerates that timeline for everybody.
And I love like some of the way that tech, even if you don't want to completely rule out personnel, if you have a facility the size of Mitch's where you still do need on-site management, this still does, that technology allows you to see when your tenants are coming to this site, how frequently they're visiting, what units they're going to. So it allows you to plan a little bit better for management and reduce that larger overall expense. Mitch, is there anything else that you can add about construction?
I mean, I would just say stretching the dollar is very hard, but I think we're spending the dollar earlier on. So, I mean, we're really spending more on refining our plans earlier, really trying to value engineer, really sitting with the structural, spending time on the plans with structural engineers, MEPs, and the architect and the civil engineer, and really getting the design right as best as we can, so we don't have the changes or change orders later, so we're not making adjustments later, and everything's really, really fine-tuned. We're also ordering steel early. We've done that in the last few projects, and again, it's not a cost savings. We're paying for storage, but we're not getting the increase later on. So, it's holding our budget. We've been okay with that. Roofing materials now seem like they're getting back in line where you couldn't get them before. Now we're able to get them. As far as the technology, that's on the man. I think we're putting in more technology now in terms of the kiosks we're putting into all our facilities, and that helps management. So we bring in third-party management, but I think it helps them, which ultimately helps us as far as filling it up faster, tenant ease, tenant comfort. We're also putting EV charging stations now at all of our facilities as we build them, and just as an added feature to be environmentally conscious and, just kind of, move along with the times. So we're doing that as well. So, we're all on board with technology. We haven't used the new system from Janus at this point, the Noki, but we've always had our eye on it, and we'd love to figure it out. And we have like kind of one eye looking at it, and we've always been a fan of it, just haven't put it in yet. But maybe John will make me a deal and we get it going.
Sure. I got a deal for you.
I love it. I kind of just wanted to build up that because that was super helpful, but I'm wondering about also some of the investments you make during construction that pay off once you're operational. Going back to kind of like some of those personnel expenses, but I'm also curious about insurance costs when it comes to security, those upgrades, and then the creative ways that you're adding these amenities. What does the payoff look like?
I would just say for us,
one job.
I would just say
you want to
us,
start this one?
Yeah, no, we haven't been adding so many amenities as far as, the amenities we add are more of the, we put music in the hallways, we have high security everywhere, lots of cameras, gated control systems. We're doing the touchless entry on the keypads. But as far as we're going with technology, and then we do something also where we just kind of add a little bit to the bathrooms, where we put in tile and we make it look a little nicer, so it doesn't look like a gas station bathroom. So we're doing that kind of stuff where we just make it feel and look nicer for the user. And I think it goes a long way. Just a little bit extra in touches is what we've been adding in.
I think that's a great point. I have an owner operator here in the Western US that, to Mitch's point, on the bathrooms, they say we just spend more on the bathrooms because we want the experience to be good for the tenants. And they do little things on their property to make things a little easier. Even the access to carts, the access to helps to get their materials into their units, particularly on a multi-story indoor climate controlled, the location of those, good signage. I think good signage at a property makes a huge difference. Just the maps, where my unit is, how do I get there, what's the best way to drive, little things in the site prep, like turning radiuses, and the width of the units, particularly if you're in an RV area that has people have boats and RVs, and the width and the height of the units, and all those things that are they're small but they're big because they make a difference to that tenant. And I think that's really critical.
Bathrooms, definitely, like that just changes your perception across the board. Just make it nice.
I agree.
Absolutely. I mean, you need to be clean, you need to be secure, and you need to be well lit.
Yeah. So I also wanted to chat a little bit about financing and what is there to consider. Yes, Matt, can you start us off?
I think I'm going to defer that one to Mitch.
So ask me again. What are we talking about? I wasn't ready for that question. I was zoning out.
Financing.
Yeah.
Financing's interesting. Obviously rates are up. Anything that was in construction where people had adjustable loans, have gone up. And I think that we're seeing some things coming onto the market because they're ready to sell, but because they're maybe feeling pressure to sell. I haven't seen anything trading at like deep discounts or anything like that. So I don't think there's a crunch in the market or that kind of pressure happening. But I think financing certainly has an effect. As far as construction and moving forward, rates are higher, and we just have to pro forma them in. It's there's gonna be light at the end of the tunnel. It's we're gonna live to see another day. I think the gentlemen on this call are old enough to have seen this before. Allison maybe not, but
Thank you.
We have the youth here as well, but we've been to the movie, and I think we've been to the movie a couple times. That no matter what the event was that caused the higher interest rates and the recession and the higher inflation and all these things, it's we've been to the movie where real estate is cyclical. Inflation, interest rates, it's cyclical. It goes up, it goes down. So it's going to require some patience. And I kind of describe it as you have to kind of hold your nose a little bit and just get through the stink. So that's where we are now. I don't think we've seen the worst of it yet. Rates are going to still creep up a little bit. It looks like, just based on the last reports, it's going to stretch out a little bit longer than we all hope, but we'll get through it. And I think if you pro forma properly and you plan properly and you balance your debt and your equity properly, there's room to keep moving. I mean, we're all in business, and business occurs during good times and bad times. So if you're in business, you have to know how to navigate throughout all those times. Otherwise, you're really not a business. So you got to get through it, and you got to be smart and just change expectations of your company, yourself, investors, and third parties. Everyone's got to just get on the same page.
I agree. I was with two owner operators yesterday at lunch, and they both said the financing criteria and the requests from the banks have changed a little bit. They're becoming, the scrutiny is a lot higher than it was a year or 2 years ago. And Mitch may have seen this as well with his banking relationships, but that the scrutiny is a lot higher. They're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. They're being a little more diligent in their underwriting, and it's not, business is still moving forward. They're able to get construction loans and financing, but the scrutiny is higher and the ratios have changed a little bit, and obviously the cost of capital has changed. And but both these guys are developers and owner operators, and they're moving forward. They're going to just continue to grow their businesses, and they're just finding it. One of them said, "I just have to jump through a few more hoops. It's a little more difficult." And one of his relationships soured. He said they didn't want to continue to do a lot of storage, so I had to find a new relationship. And those changes can be hard for owner operators and for developers. But I would agree with Mitch. I think things just are continuing. Business is still happening, and I think what I've heard and seen is the scrutiny is increased. And if you've got good balance sheets and you've got things like that in your organization, you're still moving forward. I think some of those that may have been on the fringe are struggling a little bit more.
Just to jump in there real quick, when you talk about scrutiny of deals, you would hope that a lender is always scrutinizing deals so that bad deals don't get done. So when the money gets too loose is when you see bad deals. And I think that's when we as an industry get into problems. And, when there's so much free flow of money where, people are building into crowded markets and, there's no end in sight, I think that's very dangerous. And I think a lot of that's been going on. So when they say rising tides raises all ships, that's kind of where we've been. Now, when the tides come down, we're going to see whose pants are down. You know what I mean? So, we're going to see what's really going on now, and which deals were meant to be and which shouldn't have been built. I think we're going to see a lot of that coming.
Matt, is there anything you wanted to add about financing?
Oh, I think they've covered it.
That was really impressive.
Yes.
Any final thoughts, Matt, before we do close out?
Well, just it's been pretty evident throughout our conversation this morning is, the due diligence. And I think it's very important too, when you start talking about the development of a property, is develop the right team. I mean, it's from the civil to the architect to your general contractors to your building provider, your lender, everything. All those different aspects are so important. Build the right team, do your due diligence, and just connect yourself with the right people.
John, can you add or anything else before we close out?
Oh, I think Matt nailed it there. I think that's, that kind of building that right team and putting that together. And, I agree with Mitch. I think some of those deals that were a little loose, we'll see some fallout in the marketplace, and those that, we're doing them right are going to continue to be successful. And, I'm optimistic about 2023. I think it's going to still be a good year for storage. I think, we're seeing some change in, the tenant occupancy rates. We're seeing some change in the average, unit rentals. We're not seeing as dramatic of increases, even with the publicly traded REITs. If you look at their 10K, I think we'll see that across the market. So, those that are developing kind of what, Matt said, and put that together makes a big difference.
Perfect. Mitch, any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, for anyone out there who's going to be watching this and, thinking about developing or feel like they're having problems with the development aspect, or, they're reading the news and they're getting nervous, we always say that planning is the key to success, but really even more than that is execution. So if you're in a situation where your plan isn't actually coming out the way you thought it was, or the market is forcing that plan to change, just focus on execution and just really, hunker down and get that execution going and think of how you can make it work. Because you can execute and be successful even on a bad plan, or even on a good plan which turns sour. The execution process and how you get it done and how you bring it to the end is what's going to make the difference. So I would just tell anyone, stick with it. It's not as bad as everyone thinks it's going to be, as it is, or as it's going to be. We're in for a little ride, but I was talking with an economics professor, and he was saying it's like when there's you're putting a bunch of watermelons on a cart, and you have the donkey that's pulling the cart. The watermelons are going to settle down, and it's going to be okay, and they'll settle down a little bit. Maybe you'll get a couple broken watermelons, but you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. So just we got to get through the watermelon, the settling of the watermelons.
I like it.
Yeah, these are great.
That's really good.
Mitch, can you share your contact information also before we close out?
Sure. I mean, I would say the easiest way to get me is on LinkedIn. Just click me up on LinkedIn, and you can message me. I'm happy to answer. I write to people all the time, so
Yeah.
I get random. Hit me up on LinkedIn.
That's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
John, can you share your contact information?
Yeah, it's just, I'm John Bilton at Janus International, and my cell phone number's out there. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and you can go to the Janus International website and find me. And I'm available. My cell phone number's on everything I send out there, so people can contact me. And I'm happy to answer questions for anybody or offer my opinion. And if they're looking for good tech, I'm happy to help them out.
Yeah, and then so it's John Bilton at Janus INTL. Just
Yeah, it is John.Bilton at
thank you. Okay.
JanusINTL.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then Matt, also, can you share your contact?
Yeah, LinkedIn is fine, but it's Matt.Mawer, Maurer at BETCOinc.com.
Perfect. Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for watching. Feel free to give me a call with any questions, 248-795-8126, or send me an email, Allison, ALISON at listselfstorage.com.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Allison.
Allison.
Thank you.
Always
Thank you
nice
very
to
much.
see you guys.
Everybody have a good day.